This is Deandra Beatty, and you're listening to The Bowler Show.
Hi, this is Jackie Bowling, and you're listening to The Bowler Show.
This is Jeff Riggles of Storm Products and the 11thframe.com. You're listening to The Bowler Show.
Hi, this is EJ Tackett, and you're listening to The Bowler Show.
Welcome to The Bowler Show, featuring interviews with the biggest names in bowling today. Tonight, we're joined by PBA legend and Hall of Famer Brian Voss, USBC Public Relations Director Matt Cannizzaro, coaching legend and Open Championship staple Mike Jasnow, and now your hosts, David the Waswo and myself, Luke Rosedal.
All right, welcome one, welcome all to another edition of The Bowler Show. My name is Dave Waswo. I am your host for the next 2 hours, alongside my co-host Luke Rosedal. And we're going to mix it up a little bit this week. We're going to do a little more in-depth interviews this week. We're only going to have 3 guests on, but we got a couple of guys that can talk for quite a while. They've got all kinds of stuff going on in the bowling world. And, of course, Luke, at 7:20, we're going to be checking in with Matt Cannizzaro again. Not a whole lot going on in the Open again this week. I'll tell you, I don't know if you and I are going to be able to talk about any of this. All kinds of stuff going on. We're kidding. Those of you who follow the Open Championships, of course, know what's going on. All kinds of craziness. I mean, Luke, did you see this coming this year? I didn't see it coming. The last few years have been kind of low to medium scores, and all of a sudden the scores are breaking out this year.
Yeah, I had kind of thought that, last year with it being the COVID year and only having one team per pair and 4 doubles and singles bowlers per pair, they tried to soften up the conditions a little bit, because in the past it had been, they want to design the patterns for the teams to break the pairs, to work as a team, to break the pairs down correctly. But having half the bowlers on there, that wasn't really going to be an option. So you weren't going to see near as much transition, half as much transition, actually. And so you didn't really have the chance to break the pairs down. And so they softened them up just a little bit to kind of meet you in the middle. They weren't easy by any means. But they weren't as hard as they had been in previous years. And I thought with everything going back to normal this year, that they would take everything back to normal this year. And it's almost like what I've heard from a lot of people is that it's even easier than it was last year. And last year that was my first time out as a lefty, and I shot 1840 for all events. So
that's embarrassing for me, by the way.
Yeah.
Since I've only done that like twice ever with my correct hand. So,
yeah.
We had the show back in 2014 when Artistic Expressions, I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
With Zeno Garcia and Jimmy McMartin and Pete Thomas and Ted Pritz and
Ted
one
Pritt.
Other one that's probably going to message me for forgetting him. I can't remember who that is, but that group shot 37-20, of course, setting the all-time record. There was 3 or 4 3500s that year. And I remember talking to Matt, discussed a little bit about, probably going to lock these down next year. And, of course, Matt diplomatically said, I have no idea. Of course, he doesn't control any of that. But they did lock them down, where the past few years have been very difficult out there. And the scores are what you might think. 3,300 has been a good scoring team. 3,271, I believe Barta's team won with, if I'm not incorrect.
Very difficult.
So seeing what's happening now in the first couple of 3 weeks, I'm not sure that they knew that this was coming. Of course, the patterns, they understand when they put them out with a good idea of what they want or what they might see. I don't know if they saw this coming. These scores, and unfortunately, we were unable to get Brett Cunningham or anybody from that team. They have a previously scheduled event tonight on Fremont Street. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And they're going to have some fun, of course, down there, especially after what they did. 10,444 pins. Setting the all-time team all-events record. The longest-standing record at the OC from 1996 in Salt Lake City. That's one. Now, see if I can. I'm gonna mess this one up too. It's Jerry Kessler with a J.
Yeah, the other Jerry Kessler. Yeah,
Jerry Kessler.
JK.
Of course, the 2 Pollards.
Yeah.
Don Scudder. And I want to say Jeff Fair or Abner. I'm going to screw that up. So I can't remember the 5th, but either way, they had the record at 10-4, I believe, 20 or something right around there. And that record is no longer around. So between that and what we saw today on the live video from Matt, with the group shooting 15-18 in doubles, we're seeing a lot higher scores. I'm actually confident I might have an okay year this year.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a shot to break 1,800, or as Matt likes to have fun with me and say 1,700. But enough about Matt during this segment. He's got his own segment at 7:20, so we'll leave that talk to later. But I mean, does this give you some thoughts of, hey, you know, you watched Anthony Pepe shoot 300, you throw it exactly like him?
Oh, yeah.
And
pretty close.
But I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but do you feel like, hey, that's something, you know, I'm looking forward to? I saw where he played. Obviously, you guys are fairly straight.
Yeah, I kind of play in that same zone, and then Matt McNeil had a great year again. Also,
that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know that he doesn't really count. It's kind of like whenever Trevor bowls well on something, it's just I don't really even pay any attention to it.
You can't match what he's doing.
Yeah, but I mean, we were just talking about the Team Olivence record last year, thinking that was going to stand forever, and they only beat it by not even 20 pins, but they beat it. That's kind of the point. And again, you know, at 10,444, you divide that by 5. That's 2,000 plus. That's every single member of the team shooting almost 2,100. So you 2080, 2090, averaging almost 230 for 9 games. So 5 different people averaging almost 230 for 9 games. You know, that's 45 games that you have to get all 5 people on the same page, not having issues, and not whatever else. And so it's just so much bigger of a number than I think people realize. And so, yeah, it does give me some hope, I guess, to have a decent year. It's still obviously not easy, but for the good players, the margin between when you give them just that little bit extra to work with, it doesn't take a whole lot for a legitimately great player to feel like they have the world. I mean, if you have 1 or 2 boards, that's one thing, but if you give them that one extra board, then it's like, holy crap, that just kind of opens everything up, and they can do all kinds of different things with it. And, you know, say what you will, but there's still people struggling out there. And I'm still going to be, if we manage to shoot 3,000 as a team, that's kind of the mark that you look at for the team. Is 3,000 is a pretty good set.
Yeah.
If you hit 3,000, that's respectable. And even this year with them being softer, and maybe there's just a bunch of great players that are all going at the beginning of the year this year or whatever, but people tend to kind of stick to the same times a year just because it's such a big outing that you kind of plan things, prepare for things, and whatever else. So it's just, I don't know. It's a good thing that they didn't release the patterns or have any live streams or whatever, because that would have really helped people score this year. So,
well, high scoring, low scoring, pattern transparency, whatever, the cream always seems to rise to the top.
Yeah,
so.
that'll always be a constant.
So you talked about 2014. That's the only year I've been on a team that shot 3,000. I felt like the shot was better than the house shot they had back at home. It's so good, and so much shim in the middle that you never see out there. Before we go any further, let's take a moment and tell the folks a little bit about our sponsors and talk to our chat a little bit. Some of our devoted people that come to watch right at 6 p.m. We're a little surprised we weren't on the air currently.
We had to watch the Masters, sorry.
We did what a lot of people were doing anyway. So we watched the finish of the Masters, of course, with Scotty Scheffler. So we came on a few minutes late, but we do want to thank all of our sponsors that get us on the show. Before we get going too far into the show, of course, our title sponsor, Storm Bowling. They take care of all of our needs in the bowling world. Go to stormbowling.com for all your needs. I work with I Am Bowling. He works with Cool Wick. They're all great manufacturers of shirts, dye sublimated stuff, better quality than any other companies. We are also brought to you by S&H Custom Homes, SRGBBFS. Yes, I'm gonna get at that. I don't know what do you got the over under? Somewhere in May where I don't have to walk my way through that.
You picked up on pronouncing my last name pretty quick, so
I don't think I've had any lost. I think I've gotten over that hurdle.
Yeah.
That was the first hurdle. That's the main hurdle.
Yeah. That's gonna probably continue.
The ums are just in there. They're always gonna be in there.
Nick Brown, who owns SRGBBFS, sent me a message yesterday and said it's like just the amount of people that spell your name wrong on a daily basis because there's the Storm Roto Grip Bowling Balls for Sale group. My name pops in there all the time when somebody wants recommendations or whatever. It's like, watch this guy's video, and they manage to apparently spell my name wrong quite often. So, which as long as they get it close enough, I think people know who you're talking about.
That's a pretty good idea. We're also brought to you by Double J's Pro Shop, Turbo Grips. And am I forgetting anybody?
Bowler's Mart.
I always forget Bowler's Mart.
I don't know. It's on the other sleeve.
And so you got your Patch Pirate shirt on today. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's my.
Sticking to this.
Yeah, it's my NASCAR shirt. I'm actually going to get one of them NASCAR because I've got how many different logos on here? I don't know, all over the place. I'm going to get one of those fireman vests.
Are you a NASCAR guy or?
Not really.
Okay, good.
No.
Okay, good. I was going to ask your favorite driver, but no, there's no need.
No.
Okay, that's
good.
Good.
Drive in circles.
All right, real quick, back to the OC. Or actually, let's talk for a second about our guests we got coming on. We talked about Matt Cannizzaro, of course, at 7:20 each and every week. And then this week we're going to talk to Brian Voss, very opinionated guy, obviously bowled in the 80s, bowled alongside me, won a few more titles than I did, maybe has a little classical, better classical style than I do. But we're going to check in with him here in just a little bit. And Brian's got a lot to say, had a lot going on in the bowling world. And then at 7:40 tonight, we're going to bring in Mike Jasnow, somebody who has watched some of the OC and is giving lessons. I believe he's at the Orleans again. Could be Gold Coast.
Yeah, he's going to be. Yeah, I just actually saw that earlier. He's going to be at the Orleans.
Probably something our crack staff should have had down for me, right?
Yeah,
if we had a crack staff.
Yeah.
So
I think it was actually he's there now, or it was April 10th, 13th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, sometime this week until June 20th ish. So
I'll do a quick PA, whatever it is. I liked Lane 81 back in the day.
Yeah,
that was my favorite place. I've worked with Mike a couple of times, but that Lane 81 is pretty cool. I don't know. Have you done a lesson with Mike or been?
No, I haven't. No, we normally in the past we've just gone out and we just had the couple days of bowling and whatever else, and didn't want to spend the extra money on the coaching thing. Now I would probably take that, but we go at the very end of the tournament, so he's already out of there by then. But yeah, Lane 81 was super good just to even see it.
Yeah,
was cool, and he's also Brad Miller's coach.
Yeah,
so they've been working a bunch together, and Brad's obviously been on TV quite a bit here recently. He was just on the PBA playoffs today. He did fairly well in the Masters here last week, so we can talk to Mike about Brad.
Now, if you've ever been on lane 81, you know what I'm talking about. You feel like you're on a 30-foot lane.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's set aside by itself, and it's really strange bowling on. But everything he had set up there, and I'm sure he's got a good setup there where he's at now too. We'll check in with Mike and see how he's doing with the lessons and the coaching, and if anybody's got better insight than himself there on the OC, then we'll find out. But Mike's always been a good friend of the show, of course. Grew up around here, went to Wichita State.
Yeah.
And so Mike's got some ties to here, and he's bowled in the King Louis, the same tournament that I've bowled in before. So we'll check in, with these two guys, and we'll talk a little bit about bowling now, and then a little bit about bowling in the 80s. So, Luke, without too much further ado here, and those OC scores: 3303, 3598, and 3543.
They all
was
had
the breakdown.
Nuts.
We got that.
Yeah,
sent in from one of our listeners the exact breakdown. I mean, there's just no way.
Yeah,
there seems to be no way.
Yeah,
to do
those numbers are crazy.
No, that's
just
once
insane.
in a lifetime thing. So, anyway, you got anything else before we sneak into our break here and we talk to our first guest?
Not at the moment. Yeah, I think we covered everything. I did go for 4 on my picks for the PBA playoffs today.
You want to show that?
So that's fortuitous.
Let's
Yeah. So we did
if
that.
You won't, I will. Let's show that to
Jonathan and I did this on our the Breakdown Pair show on Wednesday. We all made our picks, and this kind of shows you. So they had the this side of the bracket today. And we also went in with the House Hack Bowling guys, and they managed to pick most of the right stuff. But Yeah, you can see that the J is for Jonathan, the L is for Luke, and so we missed on Belmo, I missed on Rash, I missed on Packy, I missed on Brad. So at least Jonathan went 2 for 2 today. I went 0 for 4, which is why you always pick with your head instead of your heart. If I'd have picked with my head, I'd have gone 3 and 1. I wanted to see, Sean. I like Sean Rash. Sorry for those that don't, but I think Sean's a great guy. And let me reset this color balance. I can't reset a color balance with a white hand. That's the only thing that's here that's whiter than my face is this sheet of paper. So
even the lights over here are wondering why it's so white in here. So
yeah, I don't know, but if I was picking with my head, I'd have gone Belmo, Troop, Barrett, and Prather. But I really wanted to see Belmo and Rash bowl each other, and I really wanted to see Packy and Brad do something.
That's why you
smart
the other way.
Yeah. That's
I went away, and then maybe they would have won. So
yeah. So next year, I'm just gonna whatever pick I want to make, I'm gonna make the opposite pick. Normally, that's how that works. So
okay, well, you put the L in Luke. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a quick break here. We forgot to mention one of our sponsors, and we're actually going to play his commercial now. So Bob Foster with BobbyJacksons.com, and Luke and I'll be back on the other side.
Bobby Jackson's Trading is the place to sell all your unwanted precious metals, including broken gold and silver jewelry. They also buy old silver and gold coins, so check them out for all your buying and selling needs. Also, did you know that Bobby Jackson's Trading pays top dollar for your unwanted gift cards? You know the ones your grandma got you for Christmas? Bobby Jackson's Trading is located on 23rd Street, just 1 block east of Noland Road in Independence, Missouri. They're open 7 days a week. Check them out at BobbyJacksons.com or give Bob Foster a call at 816-463-1919. That's 816-463-1919.
All right, we're back with the Bowler Show. We're going to have, once again, Brian Voss is going to be our first guest. Those of you, he bowled with the greats of the game. I mean, Norm Duke, Parker Bone, Walter Ray Williams Jr., they're Doug Kent. I mean, you can keep naming off people for just endlessly in that era of the game. And it was something that's really fun when you're talking to people like that, too, is that they went from, a spray bottle on old beat-up wood lanes to urethane and plastic balls to all of a sudden we got synthetic lanes, we got reactive balls, and so they went through everything. They started with the basics of the basics, and then bowling technology has improved where we got lane machines, and we got synthetic lanes, and we got reactive balls, and so they went through all of this stuff, and a lot of those guys managed to be successful throughout all those changes. And for those of the younger bowlers that I remember bowling with urethane balls on wood lanes, and that's just what we had. But we did have, at the same time, when I started bowling, we had reactive balls too, and they just built a synthetic center here, 20 years ago or whatever. So, but it's very different bowling with, and we're still using urethane balls, but at the same time, urethane on wood is completely different from urethane on synthetics. And there used to be a process that they'd go through on wood lanes too, where they'd resurface them every once in a while. Wood lanes would have so many resurfacing cuts on them. And so you'd resurface them a couple times and you have to replace them. But synthetic lanes last. You don't really have to do much to synthetic lanes. You just kind of oil them and strip them and oil them and strip them and whatever else. And so there's been a bunch of changes in the game of bowling from when Brian Voss started to where he retired. And it just amazes me that the amount of changes that all of them went through, yet still managed to be successful, especially when you're considering that Walter never had a high rev rate. He could turn it up if he wanted to. Norm Duke could turn it up if he wanted to, wasn't necessarily his thing. Voss was kind of in the middle. He was more kind of the Doug Kent kind of, he could bend it if he needed to. But what really impressed me about that era of bowler and the success that the amount of success that they still had, despite not having the power game and not having whatever else, just knowing how to bowl, knowing how to get the pins down. I kind of harp on that quite a bit myself, but I do like seeing, I don't like seeing a carry contest with a bunch of big rev rates. I like seeing I like seeing the guys, gals, what have you, that just know how to get the pins down and know how to put the right touch on the ball. So, yeah, we're working on getting Mr. Voss into the stream at the moment.
Actually, I'll tell you what. I'm going to give you.
So,
this is the wonder of the radio. We're on the show live right now. I'm going to pass you over to my partner, and he's going to help you with the technical stuff. So stand by 1 second.
all right, yeah, we're gonna
Tag in, Luke.
yeah, we'll trade off here.
All right, I'll tell a couple of Brian Voss stories that I know from the 80s that may or may not make it on the air later.
You heard that? You can start telling stories. We don't get paid.
Now, Brian would never, ever remember this, but we were just on the phone with him just now. He's having some technical difficulties with the link, so hang in there. We'll get him on. We got all night, so we got plenty of room tonight with a few less guests than normal. So anyway, 1989 King Louis Open was my first tournament ever. Those of you who know the King Louis is here in town in Overland Park, Kansas, or was, of course. And I had to make it through the Rabbit Squad, about 120 bowlers for about 8 spots. And I was lucky enough to get through that, get into the tournament, and ended up qualifying 9th. So now we get to the Brian Voss part. Of course, Brian back then was making top 24s all the time. And fortunately for me, he was one of my victims that day. I actually beat him in match play. And then I also met up with him one other time in match play at the Touring Players Championship in 1989 also. And that was in Taylor, Michigan. I believe it was Taylor Lanes, Red Carpet Lanes maybe, long time ago. So anyway, Brian did not beat me that day either. So as terrible as I was, and I was 12-36 lifetime in match play, against Brian Voss, somehow I'm 2-0. So, and there's also a story in there about how I may or may not have gotten his autograph after one of the matches because my soon-to-be wife thought he was better looking than me. So we'll just leave it at that. But Brian was very kind and, of course, took care of that. He was very good with that. Luke, we got any update? Got a chance to get him on here?
Yeah, he's got a firewall situation. We're
right.
going to try something. And
all right, well, I told my Brian Voss 2-0 story, so I'll leave that off of the air later unless we run out of content for Brian. But I heard you talking a little bit about his game, and as far as classic styles, it was David Ozil, Brian Voss, and not many other guys threw it that well. So
yeah,
Brian, mini titles of the year. Actually, I don't know where's our crack staff this week.
I don't know.
I think that was supposed to be me. We had some stuff. We had some stuff going on this week, and we're not quite as prepared as always. But obviously, Brian's. I believe he's in the low 20s. If I had to.
Yeah. I think he's somewhere between 20 and 25.
Brian was winning all kinds of tournaments.
25 PBA titles.
Yeah.
1 major, 2 titles on the PBA 50 Tour, and 1 PBA 60 title. He was inducted into the PBA Hall of Fame in '94 and the USBC Hall of Fame in 2007.
Perfect.
He grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. So he's got a Sean Rash connection there because that's where Sean is from.
I believe Brian was the son of Army parents, if I remember correctly, just from stuff that I remember from. And they did a lot of moving around, but Anchorage, Alaska is where he started out, and hopefully he ends up in Topeka, Kansas here in a little bit on our show.
He did also. He was in the Army for a couple of years too as an electronics technician.
Lots of good stuff. Any other tidbits in there that we can throw out while we're waiting for him?
They moved to Colorado. The family moved to Colorado. Won his first PBA Tour title in 1983. So I was born in '81. So
enjoys long walks on the beach and sunsets also.
Yeah.
In case you were wondering about that, but anyway,
probably pina coladas too.
We'll get Brian on here. Florida's been one of his landing places. Actually, I'm not 100% sure where he is right now. We'll find out from him. I think he's still down in Florida, but
yeah, that's
unfortunately we're not able to chat with him.
Yeah, if I grew up in Alaska and Colorado, I'd probably end up in Florida.
That's quite a ways. Yeah, that's quite a ways. So anyway, let's just I thought many memories of Brian I remember on TV. He was on there a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times he was on overall. It seemed like he was on weekly. He was so consistent. He would end up, every other week it seemed like he was on the show, because the shots that they put out back then required accuracy every week, no matter what part of the lane you were playing, and that was just Brian's game.
Yeah.
He was hard to beat. So we're going to skip over some of the computer stuff here. We're going to try to get him on the phone.
Yep.
And we're gonna do it that way. This is our kind of our backup plan each week. We've done this a few times. Kevin Williams started this trend, so I blame Kevin for that. And sometimes things just don't work out in the world of technology, and we found that out for many years on the Bowler Show.
Oh yeah.
On radio. On radio you got to tie it into the station too. You can't just can't just have your own stuff. You've got to make sure it's going out on the air there too. So besides on your stream, we would stream it at the same time we put it on the air. So there was all kinds of problems that would happen. So we're going to give Brian a shot here on the phone. And once again, Brian, back in the 80s, 90s, he was on the show all the time. Classical style, hard to beat in match play. And he came up when there was a lot of good players. Everybody likes their era the best, of course, but he came up with a lot of good players at the same time. And we'll get so we get a little bit about some of his memories, some of his roommates, good and bad.
Yeah. Here we go.
Anybody got any questions in the chat?
Yeah.
That you have for Brian, let us know also.
We got him on here.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna go through the phone. The computer thing was just his firewall wasn't liking it. So
okay. So when you say through the phone, you mean through his phone?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's gonna be on his phone. So he's in here now. He's got it all sorted out. So
all right. If he looks like he's ready, you bring him in when you're ready. We already gave him his intro. The wonderful world of the internet. So, and I probably should have my phone off at this point. You'd think in week 6 I would have figured that out by now and have the magic tripod here in case we need it.
Yeah.
Angel is on top of that. Angel's our producer. We have not mentioned her yet because nothing had gone wrong yet, but let's mention her now. And there he is, the man, the myth, the legend, 25 PBA titles. Brian Voss, welcome to the Bowler Show, sir. And just as we thought might happen, we're having trouble with audio on your end. This is a common issue, so stand by. We're going to go through our protocols. Luke, what's the...
Yeah, it's just does he have an iPhone?
It's Brian, if you can hear us, do you have an iPhone? Thumbs up. And I'm not sure Brian can even hear us. So
Yeah.
let me duck out for a minute here.
Yeah.
We're using up precious time with Brian's. Good thing we don't have a 640 guest today.
Yeah. Just get him on. We can get him on Facebook Messenger or FaceTime.
All right, so we are going to go to the iPod. Is that correct?
Maybe.
Or
not. Probably. I mean,
okay, that might be the only way. I'm afraid.
Sometimes this thing just doesn't want to.
Okay. So, Brian, one more time. Number 1, if you can hear us.
Yeah, I think his video's cut out. So
he's frozen in time forever.
Yeah,
there, so.
I'll take him out for a minute there. And
all right, Luke, I'm gonna turn this over to you. You do what you need to do there.
Yeah, let me see
to
if
get Mr. Voss.
it doesn't look like he has one, or else you'd be able to select FaceTime or.
Might have me blocked.
So.
Because I'm too.
Yeah, get him on Facebook Messenger, or I can pull him up on Facebook Messenger.
Okay,
we can do that.
Are we just sending the link through there?
No, it doesn't look like that's going to work. So
Okay.
we're just gonna messenger.
All right, stand by, Brian. If you're still hearing us on your computer, we're going to give you a call on your phone, and we're going to basically just prop the phone up here, and you're going to be on that way. So there's more than one way to skin a cat.
Oops. Wrong one.
And
no, I don't want a conference call.
yeah, we're getting
there.
We're getting there. The beauty of our technology.
No, but you're going to have to do it.
All right, what am I doing?
Just going to his Messenger. Just going to Messenger, Facebook Messenger.
He doesn't have an iPhone, by the way.
Yeah. So find him on. So go ahead and type his search in the search. Type his name in there.
Believe it or not, I can get that far.
Yeah, then go on ahead and hit the video chat button.
I don't like the view of me, I can tell you that. There a way we can stop that. Actually, I'm going to turn this here. Get some more power here so we don't lose him.
Fun fact.
This is going to flip around, right? I'm going to show you.
Yeah, fun fact, Waswo's phone is so old it still has a button on it.
Is that I want the back button back. I missed my back button.
You missed your back button? Yeah.
Brian.
All right, so yeah, I think he'll pop out and grab that here in a minute. We love the technical
You're a little
issues.
more optimistic than I am currently. Oh, there we go.
See.
Now what happened? Why did it do that?
No, it's on there. It's on there. He's just got to turn his video on. I think.
I've never seen it do this, so.
Yeah, I don't know.
Brian Voss may or may not be on the show this week, folks. Yeah, Brian. Okay, he's not in the queue there anymore, so he can't hear us. Or actually, I guess he could hear us like normal people in the chat room are right now. Let's push this thing and see what it does. Change the lighting and all to where we look less white.
I don't think that's an option.
All right, I don't know how it went out there in the corner.
Blinding
I've never
whiteness.
seen it do that.
Yeah, normally it's got the. So I don't know if he'll need to.
Get back on that.
That should be flipping the camera around so he can see not us.
Ah, boy. All right, let's do this. Let's hook him off here. Let's try it one more time. That was the quality of your call, not good.
We can actually just call him.
Let's call him.
Just call him. I can find an action shot or something. I can put that up on the.
All right,
just call him and put turn it on speaker, and just plop the phone right here, and it'll go right into the speaker.
Oh, now he's calling us.
No, there we go. Yeah, just do that. Accept.
That's still doing that though. Why is it doing that?
Yeah, it just may not be a good connection.
All right,
because when his video came in, it looked like he just didn't have the bandwidth. So
let's go
back
back
just
to
call him on the
this.
phone.
Let's go back to square one here.
What's up?
All right, Brian. We are going to put you on just audio for now and use one of your fantastic, handsome headshots here from the internet.
You got so many glamour shots here that would.
What's going on with the technology? But we're going to go ahead and do this interview. Just do audio for now, and people just have to look you up on the internet. So
Okay.
All right, we'll just do it through the phone if you're good with that, right?
I'm fine with
All
that.
right.
Yeah,
All right.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to the show. Sorry about all the technical problems, but that can happen in our business a lot. So
That's all right.
Let's get started right away. We've already given you introduction stuff. We've gone through that a couple of times. How's semi-retirement treating you?
Well, I'll just give you a quick update. In 2019, I bowled the last few senior events. I won one and finished third in the last one. And then COVID crap came around the next year. I didn't bowl a lick, and I had full intentions of bowling last year, but I don't know. I started collecting Social Security and got a little lazy. But I'm planning on bowling like the last 6 or 7 on the senior tour this year, just because I need to win this decade to win 5 in a row. So I've got a little motive.
Oh wow, that's a cool stat right there. You talked a little bit about the senior tournaments now. People want to know. We saw it in the chat already. They want to know are you collecting super senior checks now?
Hey, if you're over 60, you qualify for that category. But I really don't go into senior events just trying to cash. I mean, sure. I'm there to win, and if I'm not healthy enough, I'm not going to bowl. It's just that simple. But I'm going to get myself ready.
Well, that's good, and you've always kept yourself in great shape over the years. It's something a lot of the players focus on now that a lot of players back in the 80s really didn't focus on. You had Amleto and you had a couple others, but that wasn't that big a thing back then. What is that? Some of your Army training, or where did you start with that? Or have you always been into fitness?
No, it all goes back to being in the Army. I mean, you're forced to get up early and go run, and running just became part of my life. It just lets you eat more. It lets you let you do a lot of things, But I miss running. I don't run anymore. I do my walks. I've got a stationary bike that I got to wipe some dust off.
Mm-hmm.
But no, the running's over. I miss that. No, but other than that, my body's doing pretty good.
Well, that's good. And we talked about the back in the 80s when we seemingly saw you on the show every other week. Take us back to the 80s. Let's just start at the very start of your career. What got you into bowling? What made, when did you make that decision that, hey, I'm good enough to go out on tour?
Well, real quick, I was 6 years old. My father was career military. He got out of the Air Force in Anchorage, Alaska. He immediately bought a bowling center. That's where I started. Never really stopped. I moved to Bismarck, North Dakota for my high school years, worked at a bowling center, always had access to free bowling. Then a 4-year tenure in the Army. My bowling balls came with me to Germany for a couple of years. Those 2 years, this would be like 1979, 1980. I brought a Mark 10 and an LT 48 with me. Those were my balls. And, I did very well. I won all Army a couple times. And once I started making, at the time, when you make $400 a month in the military and you go out and win tournaments, it gets addicting. So I just knew that right when my service years were over with, I was going to go out on tour. And ironically, I lived in the Northwest at the time in Tacoma, Seattle. Fort Lewis was my last year. It was great competition there. Marshall, Dave Husted, Earl was from the area. So I got my feet wet with some of the big boys and started the regional circuit. And it was the end of '82 where I first started touring on the big boy tour. And that was when they had rabbit squads. My first 6 events, I missed the rabbits. It was a tough grind back then, but I paid my dues and slowly but surely I just started getting better.
Yeah, I tell these kids nowadays about the rabbit squads of our day, and some of them, the one here in town is in a center that only had 128 entries in the field rather than 160. So it was 8 spots for 120 bowlers, and it was hard just to get into the tournaments.
Exactly.
These kids nowadays,
it was a good system, and the rabbit squads were packed. It was a grind to get out of there. It really was. But they had a good system. It worked, and if you were one of the good players, you made it out of the rabbits, and eventually started getting your feet wet in qualifying and match play, and then finally TV. So it was a good system.
Yeah, and if you made it through the rabbit squad and into the tournament, you needed the cash. You needed the cash after that, and you'd be exempt the next week and would not have to re-enter into the rabbit squad system. But we all went through that. You talked about Marshall and Dave and Earl in your region. Take a moment and tell us some of your toughest opponents that you faced in match play other than myself.
Well, other than yourself, Weber. That son of a bitch, I tell you what, he just, there was just something about him. I beat him once on TV, but he snapped me off more than once. And I tell you what, there was a stretch on the senior tour. I think I went like 2 years, and he beat me every single time. It just drove me nuts. The big names, I would say Norm and I are 50-50. I think I got an edge on Walter Ray, especially on TV. But Weber, nobody else, just Weber. Yeah. And I tell you what, the first time that I beat him on the senior tour, I ended up winning the tournament. So,
now, did you ever face Pete in the final of the tournament?
Of the senior events or on TV?
Of the regular events in the final match.
Oh, yeah. Him and I bowled for the title in the U.S. Open back in, early 2000s. Yeah, we bowled for a title that I did beat him on. I forget that one was somewhere down in Florida. But other than that, yeah, we faced each other a few other times on TV, but for the title, I think it was just 2 times. U.S. Open, he beat me, and then I beat him in Florida.
All right, let's talk about some more of the PBA players. Who were some of your favorite people to cross with, and some of your least favorite people?
Oh, obviously, if you cross with somebody, you want a good player, somebody that plays the lanes similar to you. I liked, I don't know that I could say I have a favorite person to cross with. It's easy to remember who you don't want to cross with. You just had a few people that either took forever. I hate slow bowling. And when you cross with somebody, it really can drive you nuts. It tests your patience. I'm not going to mention any names, but yeah, it really didn't matter who I crossed with. It's just I didn't want a couple of these guys. That's it.
Gotcha. All right, we are speaking with 25-time PBA titleist Brian Voss here on the Bowler Show. Brian, let's fast forward from the 80s and kind of go through some of the progression of the game. We see a lot of different things in the game now. The two-handers have kind of taken over here recently. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on the two-handers and some of the other differences in bowling nowadays as opposed to the 80s.
Well, I really got my first experience witnessing quality two-handers when I was touring Europe, bowling events. The first one I got to see was Waswo. It was really unbelievable watching them do this. And then I also got to see Belmonte for the first time. I think we were bowling in Istanbul, Turkey. When you first see it, and there wasn't much word out amongst the guys that, this two-handed is going to someday take over men's competitive bowling. And, you just kind of push that aside. But then when you start watching some of the statistics that are being made with these, I mean, they're let me put it this way. I do not hate two-handers. Okay, I don't hate two-handed bowling. The way that the game is right now, if I were to tell a kid how to bowl, I would have him bowl two-handed. If I knew that the game was going to continue as it is, you can't beat them. You can't beat them. Now, yeah, we get some one-handers up there once in a while, but I think it was sometime this year that there was a PBA junior gold. No, not junior gold. Junior PBA event. I think there was 18 or 19 out of the top 20 were these kids with two hands. And me personally, this is just my opinion, at some point, I think they're going to have to be separated. And the only reason I say that is because if you just look at the amount of money being won and you look at the percentage of them that are out on tour and you look at the percentage of titles being won, there's just a force that it's inevitable. In 10 or 15 years, all these kids that I just mentioned, 18 or 19 out of the top 20, are going to be out there on tour, and there's going to be less and less traditional bowlers. So I really think that at some point it's just going to have to be separated. If it doesn't get separated and those 10 or 15 years come up, and you're seeing 80 to 90% of them, bowling with two hands, then it should have been separated. And I think that's what's going to happen. It's just, there's just, all the kids want to do it with two hands. It's instant gratification, really, if you think about it. Particularly when lanes are kind of easy. They get all that spin, and there's so much margin of error. They strike a lot. So I don't blame anybody for what's happening now, but it's just my opinion that at some point it's going to have to be separated.
All right. Well, you talked about the Mark 10 and the LT 48, and we remember you in your dominant days, of course, in the 80s and 90s with the urethane. Take a little bit and talk about the evolution of the bowling ball and how that's affected the game also.
Well, it's anybody that's bowled for a living knows that the trend in the bowling ball business has always been more friction and more oil, more friction and more oil. I think we were using between 6 and 7 mils back in the 70s, and now the events where they're using 30 mils. And the introduction of flare. Flare changes lanes really quickly. It's like an eraser head. You just wipe an entire lane of oil off. Every single time you roll a ball with flare, you're taking an entire lane or entire line of oil. And the pancake weight blocks with no cores, they basically rolled on one ring. It would pick up oil in the front part of the lane and then ride on that same ring. So the mid lanes didn't change quite as much. That's why we could get away with ABC squad and never have to re-oil. It was, very seldom that it got left of fourth arrow. It's just because the mid lanes, they just didn't break down. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing, what's been happening with technology? I'll be right up front with you. I was part of the system, meaning I was paid very well when you're under contract and you have an endorsement with a ball company. But hindsight, it's just made it too chaotic, in my opinion. We could, sometime in the 80s, I had about 3 balls that I used for an entire year. You just had no reason to go in there and keep drilling and drilling and drilling. And when high-level professionals are drilling between 50 and 100 balls a year, that's too much. That's too much. So in my opinion, these balls, they got to be tamed back. They got to be tamed back. I want a fair shake. When I walk into a tournament, I just want to know that I've got just the same capability as anybody else. I don't like it when somebody has a magic ball, or back when I was on staff with AMF and the Blue Hammer came out, we couldn't use it. So, in my opinion, the ball's got to be tamed. They've got to be tamed down. If it was so good, if the direction that we're doing right now in regards to the cores, high friction balls, flare, why stop? Why not make cores even heavier? Why not make cover stocks even more aggressive? But you can see in the last year or so that USBC, they're starting to, put a couple Band-Aids on some things. But in the long run, you got to tame them back. That's just my opinion. And let me add to that. When I define greatness, it's twofold. It's either one, the most efficient player out there, the one who can do the exact same thing over and over again, or the one who can manipulate a ball with their hand and their ball speed to take advantage of any type of margin of error that's out there. And the moment you start replacing bowling balls with what you should have to learn to do with your own skills, with your own hand and your own knowledge about mechanics, it becomes easier. The definition of greatness is diluted. It's so. I'm somebody who just I threw a baseball for ever since I was 6 years old, all the way through high school. I was a pitcher, and all those ways of letting go of a baseball really helped my bowling career, because I always tried to spin it in such a way that I can take maximum advantage of any type of margin of error out there. Throwing it hard and straight, slow hook, the whole deal. To me, that's greatness.
Yeah, and see, that's something that that is a real point for me, because I've always been a big fan of the PWBA, and of course I'm 40, but when I was watching the shows growing up, again it was you, and it was Doug Kent, it was Walter and Norman, all the ones that you think about being some of the greatest of all time. And the thing that really gets me is I don't like carry contests. When I first saw two-handers, again, it was Oscu in the early 2000s on the U.S. Open show or something. He was bowling Pete, I think. And up until that point, I kind of thought, well, I've been in a pro shop forever, and there's a lot of people that come in, they just want the biggest hookinest ball on the wall, and they want to spin the crap out of it. And that's what I thought two-handers were, they just wanted to see the ball hook. But when you think about, again, some of the people that have won the most amount of titles all time, it's not people that hook the ball a bunch. I mean, Carolyn Doran Ballard's one of the greatest of all time on the women's side, and I love seeing what you have to do to a bowling ball, and just what the skill that you have to have, the knowledge you have to have, that sixth sense for just getting the pins down. It's that you have to have when you don't have the power where you can just kind of blow them off the back of the deck because you're throwing at 20 miles an hour at 500 RPMs. That's what I really love watching about bowling, is the skill of it and the kind of the art of it.
Yeah, when folks back home used to watch our shows, they never really got to see what was going on for the entire week. They watched a TV show, and your playing lane's a certain way, but when those long formats, when you had an A, B, and a C, you had to really, and you didn't have the luxury of all the balls back then. You really had to be studious, creative, and learn how to play lanes. You had to. If there were a lot of what we call one-dimensional players. They had one way to let go of it, and when they had the nuts, okay, they did well. But the guys, Weber, Norm, myself, there were guys, Doug Kent. There were guys that were creative. They would see a margin of error, a certain way to attack it, and they've practiced it many times. My practice sessions always involved throwing it this way, that way, just all kinds of different ways. So we were ready for it. But that was just the way it was back then. You had to do that. You didn't have the luxury of switching all these balls. So it is what it is now. Yeah. I sit back and I could just retire, go off into the sunset, and not say anything, but I'm still vocal. I still love this game. And I'll tell you what, Dave, the last thing that I want to see is traditional bowling is a fabulous way to bowl. We did it for an entire century. I don't want to see that fail. I have no problem. Me personally, I think there's enough growth for two-handers that if that category can continue to grow, then good. But the traditional way, I don't want to see that die, and that concerns me, and that's why I'm kind of vocal about what's going on nowadays.
Well, that's some great insight. And speaking of nowadays, are you still on any staffs, or are you able to bowl league or anything, or what are you doing to keep sharp for when you go back?
I have bowled 2 games in the last 2.5 years. Okay, 2 games. That's it. But those 2 games, when I did bowl them, it was like a bicycle. Yeah, a little rusty, but it I'm not going to say, all right, I'm going to wait 2 weeks before my first event. I'm going to start working out. No. Right now, July and August, those are the 2 months that I plan on bowling, and so my practice starts tomorrow. Not soon enough.
Well, that's kind of funny because Bob Benoit lives here in town in Topeka, and when they had, this has been several years ago, when they had, I think, the 50th anniversary of the PBA or something like that, they were going to invite all the former titleists to the Tournament of Champions, and they invited him, and he's like, well, if I'm going to go, I'm not going to go just to hang out and shoot the bowl with the good old boys and whatever else. He's like, if I'm going to go to that tournament, I'm going to try to win the thing. And he's like, I'd have to practice 8 hours a day for a solid month, and then I might think that I might be close.
Yeah. I'll have my computer, I'll have my video camera, I'll get myself on camera and get everything tidied up the way that it needs to be. But at this age and out of the senior tour, it's all about your legs. You got to, you got to be able to finish. The senior tour is not that easy to win. And I say that because I'm going to be 64 this year, and you got the brand new 50-year-olds like, who came out? They've been practicing. Some of them are still bowling on the regular tour. They come out there. They can't wait and it's not that easy to win out there. But I got to get my legs in shape.
All right, Brian, before we go, I got to bring you back to the old days when you were on the old bowler show. We used to have a tradition, and I don't know if you remember this or not. I know you don't remember this when it happened, but I'm not sure if you remember what I used to do at the end of the show. I have made match play on the PBA Tour exactly 2 times in my life. And that was at the 1988 King Louis Open and the 1989 Tournament Players Championship in Taylor, Michigan. And my lifetime match play record was 5-19, and 7-17 for a grand total of 12-36. But for some unknown reason, the gods shined on me when I bowled you, and I'm actually 2-0 versus you. So I don't know if that left a scar, or if that's you still think about that these days, or if you even remember that from the show. But that's always a fun fact I always like to bring up.
Yeah, I remember it very well. I can remember the exact score, frame by frame. No, I don't remember. I don't remember, but I'm sure it made your day.
It did, and actually, after one of the matches, you actually signed a napkin for my wife because she kind of liked you better than me, but she ended up with me. So that's those are the breaks in life. So. But anyway, you were always cordial back then, Brian. Let's go ahead and let you go. We appreciate you sticking through some of the technological problems we had earlier in the show. You were always a great guy on tour. You always had fun, and you were always, just like Pete, you were one of the toughest competitors, and just made the show seemingly every other week. So I appreciate you spending some time, and you always did before with us on the Bowler Show, and we appreciate you coming back with us.
Well, we'll do this again someday, and when we do it, we'll go through the technical things well in advance, so it runs real smooth. I will say maybe it's a good thing because my hair was down to probably my shoulders for a while. I didn't cut it for 2 years during the COVID stuff.
Yeah.
And I was in Colorado a couple of weeks ago. My sister's a hairdresser. She cut it, but it's still long. I got it all too. 64 and got it all.
Yeah,
I love it.
If I was in your shape, I'd still be competing. But alas, nothing's changed from the '80s for me in that way, and that's why I'm doing a bowler show now and not bowling on the PBA 50 Tour. So,
Brian, all right, bud, we'll keep doing what you're doing.
All right, we appreciate it, man. And thanks for taking some time with us, and we'll catch up with you real soon.
All right, guys, take care.
All right. Actually, I was thinking there at the end, Luke, that maybe I'd forgotten something there. That's good
flowing,
pictures there.
Flowing locks.
I don't even know where I saw that picture of him and I at Summit Lanes. I kind of remember it now.
Angel found that. I have no idea where she found this, but she said it was a
Facebook.
Probably, and that's Facebook back in June 2016 when you had pizza.
Yeah, that's right. And I should have brought up Toby Contreras, a good friend of Brian's.
Yeah.
That's why he was in town. And we went over across the street and got some pizza. And as you can see by that picture, I'm in just as good a shape as Brian is.
Yeah.
It's funny, these guys, Brian and Leto, who were in shape in the 80s, and I may or may not have been, and nothing's changed in 30 to 40 years. So they're still better than I am, and they're still in better shape and better looking, and that's just my lot of life. So I have to live with it. It's hurtful, but you could hear the hurt in his voice, right? When he I brought up the 2-0.
Yeah, I know.
He wanted to quit bowling forever.
He's still suffering. Yeah, we've also got a stationary bike upstairs that needs the dust knocked off of it, and that's one of the
stationary.
That's one of the things that the old guys, up around 60, there's a guy in Lawrence that says, it's like, yeah, I'm starting to lose my legs. And he's like, you don't have your legs. And that's what he said about having your legs under you. If you can't go the distance, then it doesn't matter how good you're throwing the ball. It's just going to be rough. And then when he's talking about the two-handed thing, I think he's one of those guys that's not necessarily a big fan, but he's not like the Joey Pants direction of it, where he's going to go wearing jerseys with anti two-handers on and whatever else. Make good points, and this is one of those things where people, I think, don't listen to arguments or debates or reasoning so much anymore. They hear that Brian Voss doesn't like two-handers, and then they think it's just a Joey Pants type thing. But he does have some really good points about it that he articulated very well here. That it's kind of a different game. And again, I can remember when I was in the pro shop and people would come in, it's like, what's the biggest hook and ball you got on the wall? And then they'd go out and, no thumb it or whatever else. And then Oscu makes this show. And I don't know why that my first thought was, okay, so Oscu makes the show at a U.S. Open. And I'm like, here's a two-hander. He's just trying to see how much he can hook the ball. You don't make a show at a U.S. Open doing that. And so I kind of short-circuited myself there. But it's a different type of game, and again, when the conditions are favorable, two-handers are going to change the lanes a bunch. They're going to score a whole bunch. They're going to have the power on their side. I'm not necessarily sure that they're going to split two-handers and one-handers. I think it's just going to be a thing. But you're still going to see the Francois Lavois and the Norm Dukes when it's U.S. Open, Masters time, when you've got to just make shots. And you're still going to see the Belmos because he's a very good bowler outside of the two-handed thing. He's found a way to match the power and the accuracy. Normally, it goes more power you have, the less accuracy you have, or you have more accuracy. But he's found a way to raise both of them at the same time. And so I can appreciate, again, the skill of a Brian Voss to get the pins down, not having that power game, but I can also appreciate somebody like Belmo that has that power game that still finds a way to be accurate and shape the ball several different ways and everything else. So,
all right. Well, I'm going to use my executive power as a 51% owner here in the Bowler Show and throw out a question to the chat. You guys know we have Mike Jasnow coming on later. He's giving out lessons at the Orleans. For the first person who gets this question correctly in the chat, I will pledge 10% of your lesson with Mike Jasnow. I will pay for that. So here's the question, and you must spell this name exactly correct. When Luke refers to Joey Pants, who is he speaking of? So we'll give you guys a couple of moments to see who can spell his name correctly. Luke, do you know that name exactly? I think I know how to spell it, but
I'm
take a
usually
peek
pretty
here.
good with spelling stuff, but I have a.
It's spelled just as I thought. So anybody in the chat, we have a guess. Is that spelled correctly? James
of course
Kniffen,
it's spelled correctly.
The guy who really needs the lessons the most. So that actually works out good.
And maybe Mr. Jasnow can help James get rid of his negative tilt.
That's what I was thinking. Oh, you're talking about his bowling ball. I thought you meant I thought you meant like his aspect on the game and stuff. And,
no.
Okay. Well, James is a great guy. Of course, we're kidding because we care. And you know what? I don't know that I want to know what he put in the chat there. You want to read that or?
Bruh.
That's it.
However, James is going to be going to nationals after Mr. Jasnow has left.
All right, 20% then.
So, yeah.
25. It can keep going higher if the person doesn't actually go.
Yeah,
so.
we still got.
He can. I'll tell you what, James. You can re-gift that to any bowler who wants to do it, and I'll talk to Mike later, of course.
Yeah,
when we have him on the show. But I'll tell you what, Luke. We got the hardest working man in show business is in the queue. He looks like he's ready. He's got the thumbs up over there in the queue. I think he can hear us, so we can bring him on early. He's got so much going on, so let's go ahead and bring him in. There he is. He's got the familiar look, the familiar locks, and the familiar tones we're on. The last couple of days, Matt, the live streams are going crazy. You got all kinds of stuff going on. I believe even today, when you went on the live stream for the doubles, I'm not sure you even knew the 300 was happening. How are you holding up out there?
We're doing okay. We're surviving. I got some help now. Aaron Smith has come to town. You probably heard me thank him repeatedly on the Team All Events broadcast last night. He's on the lanes right now, as a matter of fact. Timing-wise, we had a potential at the time of, hey, Matt, is your segment about to begin? It was 35-10, and then it was 34-88, and now it looks like it's going to be in the high 33s. So we're just getting started here. It's only the first couple of days of April, and there is just a ton of teams and talent coming our way. So who knows what to expect, but a serious April showers, right? Showers of strikes so far.
That's good. I mean, did we've talked about some of the records, and all the numbers. They're all in your head. Did you think you'd still be around when the Team All Events record would be broken?
You know what? I thought the all fresh was going to certainly change things, and that number potentially, I don't want to say unreachable. I think something like the doubles or maybe even the singles we talk about a lot, but I feel the fresh for the doubles is super tough. But now I don't even know. I didn't know then, to be honest. 2009, I was still a kid back then, and I saw Ron Vokes and his day that he had. And I thought that was it. The Eagles were handed out. I think we've talked about this exact thing before, but certainly wasn't the case, right? That record, it stood for since 2002, and then it only lasted 1 year after that. The All Events, of course, Matt McNeil, which has now been up there since 2010, and then the 857. I thought for sure that guy was winning a singles eagle too. But I did ask the guys earlier today when they were done, Nick and Tony, if they felt 1566 was out there, and they said it's possible they had a little bit more. So I'm curious to see, once things fall into place, if you get the right guys, anything's possible.
Yeah, you made a good point, because for 95% of the bowlers that come out there, that first part of doubles is usually the toughest part to manage. You've got less guys on the pair to kind of work it down, break it down a little bit in practice. And, for myself, I'm just like everybody else. That's the toughest time. It doesn't seem like they're really struggling that much to get into the groove and start striking. It seems like it's not taking them that long, and when they start striking, they're continuing. Did you? I know we kind of kid about some things out there, but as far as the scores, the last few years, obviously they've been tamed down. The 3271, I believe, won with Barta. 3300 was winning Eagles. And now it looks like that's going to be well down in the pack. Did you guys see any of this coming? I know you don't really predict scores or know exactly what's going to happen, but did you think these scores might be possible this year?
Oh, I mean, you never know, right? The surprise that Nick Hoagland's going to give to us and the crew that puts all that together, and everything's relative. Of course, you're out here bowling against everybody else on the same conditions year after year. Some years they're going to be a little bit higher scoring, some years not so much. But I think it's been in kind of the same window, really for my entire career here at least. If you look at the overall averages for the field, we're probably in the low 170s really the entire time, whether it's 169 or 173. I know over the course of that many players, I guess that's a lot, scientifically, but it really doesn't feel like it. It seems pretty consistent, and then just some years the scores are there, and sometimes not. But who knows? It's you never want to try to predict because it's craziness.
Well, you said it best there, and I won't press that any further because it shouldn't be a need for that. But I'll say it out loud. I see these guys online, and for the past few years, they're too tough, they're too tough, they're too tough. And then you get in there on the stream today, and if they're going to be that easy, PBA bowlers shouldn't be able to bowl. There's no pleasing a lot of bowlers, and I don't know how you do it. Like I said, I think that's the thing you've done the best out there. You're very diplomatic about all that stuff, and I don't know how you please all the bowlers. It's very difficult, but I'm not even going to ask you for a comment on that because.
Well, no. It's simple enough. You have 100% of the bowlers, right? And so 70%, I think, are going to be satisfied. They're going to have a good time. They're going to hang out with their friends. They're going to have some Bud Lights and bowl some games and win some bracket money and go home and have good memories. And then so the remaining 30%, 15 are going to have an amazing experience and they're going to love it. They're going to rave. 15, maybe not so much. And then you're just flip-flopping those 15, right? If they're a little bit higher scoring, maybe you're going to hear from the folks you just mentioned. They're too easy, what's going on? And if they're too tough, flip-flop it, 15% vocal. They're too hard, what's happening? So, again, 70%, I think that's just my unscientific breakdown of it, are going to be happy and satisfied, and we'll do our best every time, no matter what.
You just need to put a free hot dog in the coupon book.
I was waiting for the 70%. I thought you were going to say
work the hot dogs in it. At least
a hot dog, not drinking beer. But that actually somebody did bring up a valid criticism on one of your posts about the hot dog carts closing too early on the plaza side. So that needs to be shored up before June 16th. Yeah.
I'll leave a couple on the desk for you, so they're ready. Actually, you know what? There's 2 in there right now. So when you get here, just come by. We'll tell you the code to get in, and they're waiting for you.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. I'll store my equipment in there also, and spend most of my time with you. So that's a tradition over the years. I like to invade your territory. Talk about the new guy. You got another new guy in there, correct? To help out with some of the writing and the videos.
We do. Somehow we're attracting all these broadcasters, all these radio guys. We talked about Ron Kirsch and what he's brought to the office as now the coordinator of longevity is what we'll call him. He handles all of our milestone bowlers, 50, 60 years and such. And now Nick Monsanto has joined us. He's a longtime bowler, but back in the 80s and 90s even, from the East Coast, ran some pro shops and bowling centers, bowled in the regionals, and then spent his career in the radio industry doing various sports shows and such, but really has a passion for bowling and is glad to have the opportunity to be back to it. So it's nice. He's got the understanding of what the sport's all about, has picked up very quickly on what we're doing here and what team all events means and all the cool things that we do at the OC. So looking forward to seeing what he's going to contribute to the team and perhaps, within a couple of days, he'll be able to handle things and I get to step aside and if I'm going to help out, it'll at least be in my pajamas.
As it should be. And it's nice to know that I've paved the way for some of these younger guys to come in after the brilliant job that I did for a month. And hopefully he can pick up on the agate a little bit faster than I did.
Right, that's always the toughest test. We're going to do that one in advance. That's going to be the interview from now on.
That's in the opening salvo. That's funny. Matt, I'll give you one more before I flip you over to Luke here, but these scores, 15-18, 34-86, I know you don't know, but what's your feeling on them holding up for Eagles?
I feel pretty good, I think, or pretty close on the 34-86, even though we just had 34-03 as the final number reported from the lanes. I thought could potentially be the low 35s. 15-18, I think that's going to be short, believe it or not. Potentially, I would go closer to 15-40 even. But I just make this stuff up. I have no idea. When they call me on the radio, they say somebody's at 1,000 after 2 games. Now, we saw that the other day. Kevin McCune and Mike Svilar, they were 1,004 and had some struggles in Game 3. So I think it's out there. And I think, again, it's just a matter of things falling into place, putting it together. But I think maybe on the 34-86, but probably not. And 15-18, I think it's going to be short as well.
Yeah, So I've been following the USBC Open Championships Facebook page for those of you who want to have all the information. And there's so many posts here. That's the other thing is that I'm scrolling through all this stuff, and I keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And I was watching Virginia Young, who started out. She had 564 after 2 in singles. She went 97-67. And she did finish with 205, I believe, for a 769, I think. Is that right?
Yes. She made a run. She needed a double in the 10th to get to the lead in singles. And, of course, we were an 800 watch as well.
Yeah.
But Game 3 looks to be a little bit tricky. There's a lot of calls for us. 512, 514, 536, a whole bunch of numbers. And then Game 3 just seems to get a little bit wacky, whether it's the pressure or a transition. Hard to say, but at that point, some of those players, you don't want to talk to them for a while.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that sometimes even if they are a little softer to start off with the normal, harder conditions normally get softer if the team works together and breaks them down correctly. But if they do start out a little softer to begin with, if you don't manage the transition, they can get a little tougher later. And so it's kind of, okay, maybe they're a little bit more scoreable to start. But yeah, we have seen some of these where they come out the gates pretty fast, and when you're on the watch, and then it kind of fizzles out. So things kind of sort themselves out a little bit. It's still not an easy condition. There's still people that are going to go out there and just not have anything, and so it's still going to be that stage is still so grand. You walk into I still like Reno the best. The NBS National Bowling Stadium is still my kind of holy grail for bowling. South Point's pretty close though, so that stage is just so huge, and the stadium is so huge, and it's still a pretty big moment no matter who you are.
Well, we have officially put in for the name change of the venue. We're looking at Anthony Pepe Lanes at the South Point Bowling Plaza, because what that gentleman has done here, we have to talk about that, of course. The news of the week, the longest standing scoring record at the Open Championships, team all events, went down last night. And for Pep, won his lone PBA Tour title in this venue. And now 3 Eagles already.
Oh,
he's got the team and team all events with Adam Barta and crew in 2017, and found a new team in 19 and helped them to the team all events title. And now the record last night, I like that number quite a bit. 10,444. That is a monster. They all bowled well. They were consistent. It didn't look like really there was much struggle along the way, and for Pepe and Minto, the lefties, things opened up later in the day, and Anthony able to shoot 300 again. Second one, first one was in Reno in 2011, but he finished with 761, I believe, in singles. So that was enough, right? The big finish got them to the record, to the number. That is a beast. He is a beast in this building. So I like that. And, of course, those guys, they won here in 2019 all together. So the band back together. Brett Cunningham rejoining the team, or joining for the first time, however you look at it. He stepped aside because of some of the rules. He couldn't be on the same team with Anthony. So to get Anthony in the group, Brett went to the other team. And after they won, of course, he's not going to kick him off the team for the title defense. So he waited his turn. Yeah. And it was a deal that they made in advance for, it was supposed to be that 1 year, and then he was going to get that spot back after his time as a PBA member had expired, and he came back in 22-20. Do I think that's enough? Absolutely not. I think that number maybe top 3, maybe top 5, but certainly to get them there, that was fantastic. That was one of the best performances I've ever seen, and now I've officially seen all of the scoring records and both participation records. So I think my career is pretty complete, to be honest, but who knows what's going to happen in the coming days.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about the Pepe thing and the Matt McNeil doing so well out there as a new lefty now, which is really funny because I think this is going to be my 10th or 11th tournament, and I've either shot 1,700 or 1,900 as a righty. Last year as a lefty for the first time was the first time I ever shot 1,800. But I'm feeling pretty good about getting the number up in the 1900s this year. Obviously, Pepe and McNeil are pretty good, but yeah, making me feel pretty good.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready to go out there and get a little bit and help that average.
Yeah, when are you bowling?
It's gonna be hopefully soon, as we're a little bit slower, I think, here, and there's some openings on the squads. It'd be nice to just take care of business and focus on as we get those long full days, because we're getting there. Usually around April 15th is when the squads are full and we're good to go all the way until July.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Matt, it's good, first of all, to hear that you got the lane monitors whipped into shape after last year. We'll just kind of leave that at that. But more Eagle. I'm on a prediction run here for some reason. More Eagles after it's all said and done. Pepe or McNeil?
I don't know. That's tough. If we keep coming back to South Point, I think I like Anthony in that case, but McNeil, maybe this will fire him up to get back out there and get back to it. Right? He hasn't bowled a whole lot. He's busy out there helping all the other folks succeed on the ladies tour and the PBA 50 tour and helping the next generation. But I think if he was to put in what he put in a decade ago, that could be fun. And maybe someday those two guys team up and just go and get them all.
That's another way around it. So, all right, Matt, I know you're extremely busy. If you've got nothing else other than what you've provided today, we will let you go. I know I got Aaron out there, and you got a couple other guys, and Ron and as Nick. Is that correct?
It's Nick, correct.
Yes. So you got some extra help out there. So hopefully you can do some of this work in your pajamas and maybe catch a nap here and there. And just so you know, I heard your call on the stream when the team went over the 10-4-44 mark about hey, if you never did anything else with the tournament, at least you got to see this. So that was good to see.
Well, I appreciate it. Every one of those moments is super special, whether it's a record or, for example, Derek Miller coming in here from South Dakota, first tournament as a kind of a new bowler, 4 years in, a two-hander for 2 years, and he went out there. His goal was to shoot 200 on this stage. Unfortunately, he didn't do that. He shot 300 instead. And then the rest were just a little bit below 200. But that was a phenomenal story. Such an appreciative moment for him. Just awesome to be a part of that, right? So it's not all about the superstars and the Eagle winners. And before those guys did any of those things, they were the first timers and the newcomers. And so it's nice to see bowlers from all over come here. And perhaps it's a once-in-a-lifetime moment. But for us to be able to tell those stories also is what makes this so special.
Yeah, and we have another Steve Weimer that shot 300 here a couple days ago. He's kind of a local guy. He is a staple at the Greater Ozarks Open in Springfield, Missouri, and so I had no idea he was. I don't want to say this old, but it was his 49th tournament this year.
Years old,
yeah. He's still got it. Still throws it great. He's going to be 50th tournament next year, and he shot 300 this year, and so it's really cool to see the coverage, especially again. I don't know how many posts you put up here in the last couple days or in the last week or so, but I couldn't even keep up with it, and I'm not even the one putting this stuff up. So it's very cool being able to follow all this, and I just can't imagine the amount of work that goes into it. So it's really cool to watch.
Well, we appreciate it, certainly. As Waz knows, our goal is 4 per day. But as the action happens, the opportunity to tell those stories and get those bowlers, it's all the top-notch customer service is what it is. When you have your moment, we want to be there to share it. and that's what it's all about. That's why we put in the time. That's why we're here for every minute of bowling. You just never know, and certainly don't want you to turn around on the lane and we're not there because, again, if that's your moment, we don't want to miss it.
Yeah. Well, I'll make a bold prediction. This is my year, and when I turn around on June 16th, you better be there, or somebody better be there, or I'm going to be upset. But yeah, you mentioned Derek Miller. That was great. That was fun to watch. And for me, that, when guys were out there and I was videoing 300s, or we were talking to Bob Hart about, some of the stuff he's done over the years, of course, breaking the $100,000 pin club. I can't even say it, let alone get to it. Those are the moments that are special for me. And guys are going to bowl great and records are going to fall, but some of those side moments are the best. And I know that's how you feel about it too.
Hey, someday the memoirs will be coming. We'll sit down. We'll hash out all those great memories and get it out there and maybe on Amazon, make a couple of bucks. But otherwise, they're priceless memories, and we'll cherish them and keep them coming because we're here and we're ready.
All right, Matt, we'll let you go. I know you got a million things going on. Aaron Smith's texting you like crazy. You probably got some other stuff, some other scores getting ready to go here on the next squad. I'll try to be as diplomatic as I can about this, but I just wanted to say thanks once again for all the time you've spent with us over the years and the time you spent with us tonight.
Appreciate it, guys. Keep up the good work.
All right. Once again, Matt Cannizzaro, public relations manager and do everything at the USBC Open Championships. Luke, I know Matt talks about these moments, and they're just, they're here and gone so fast. But when you're there and you saw what he did in the last 14 hours between the two streams, he's got other stuff he's got to do. Yeah. When this stuff happens, everything else just ends, and you go take care of it. And I don't know how he keeps up sometimes, but anyway, he's doing a great job as always out there. And now he's got Aaron Smith, Nick Monsanto, Ron Kirsch. He's got a good support crew out there now, and they can take care of things when needed. So
yeah, I was out there when Brent Bowers and crew won the.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we got to actually watch. They bowled the day before we bowled.
Yeah.
So him and Chris Prather and Zach Rhodes. Zach Rhodes is actually going with our group this year. So hopefully he can carry the rest of us. But
who else was on? There was Justin Zwashka.
Is that Justin Zwashka? So
of course.
Yeah, Bowers, and then I can't remember. Yeah, I know. Matt's still
hanging in the. He's still hanging in the queue.
McKinney's still in there. Who are we forgetting, Matt?
Mitch Hupe.
Never heard of him.
The flowing locks. Yeah, we keep kind of joking with him that he makes some money here and there, and he can afford a haircut because him and Packy used to have longer hair, and so the joke was always, well, you guys, you make some money at these tournaments, the KC tournaments, the Dave and Mike tournaments, and you guys can go afford a haircut. And Mitch still has the long flowing locks, and Packy, as we saw today,
Matt's always lurking in the corner over
fresh
there.
Cut. Yeah, I know.
He's
making sure that we're on top of our stuff, and so saying something like that, he's got all the information. But
hey, I won't be around forever. I want to make sure that that knowledge does not go to waste.
Yeah. We'll have you on speed dial. Speed dial a thing anymore?
I don't know, but if this was your last appearance, as a cameo was just perfect.
Well, appreciate it, guys. Keep it up. I'm gonna sign off this time.
Let's get rid of him. Let's get rid of him again, and then we'll give him more accolades about always being there. Is that a metaphor for Matt in the bowling world right there?
Yeah, but
we're struggling with the last bowler, and he of course he knows who that is. He probably knows every bowler on 1 through 60 right now. So yeah. So all right, how we doing on our next guest? Is he queued up there? Is he getting close?
Not yet, but we got a couple minutes before he gets in here. So talking national stuff, it's I don't really care how you feel about the USBC or whatever. There's all kinds of stuff that's going on, but again, when you got I don't know, it's still one of the coolest things that I've ever done, period. So you can ignore all the rest of the stuff that happens the rest of the year, but if you get to go out to nationals and you have fun, it's a great venue, and you get to maybe have a coaching session with Mike Jasnow or something. It's just the coolest thing that I've ever done, period. And there's South Point's amazing. Still my National Bowling Stadium, still my favorite. But South Point's so close that people, I want to go to different places or whatever else. But for me, it's about the bowling, and we show up. There's a lot more to do now in Reno than there used to be. Mm-hmm. However, just going over to the bowling stadium, the National Bowling Stadium, and hanging out there and watching and just being there, and that's what I go for. And Vegas is, Vegas is pretty cool too. But
all right, well, that's one of the things that a lot of people do when they're out there is they decide, hey, it's time to shore up my game. I'm heading to nationals, and my game is in shambles. I've done it a couple times on lane 81, and that gentleman is going to be out there once again this year helping all us struggling bowlers. So let's go ahead and bring him into the show. He's a USBC Silver certified coach. I have no idea why it doesn't say gold. He's a top 100 coach also. He's number one in our hearts, though. Mike Jasnow, welcome to the Bowler Show, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, guys. How's it going?
Not too bad. We got a little sound issue here. We got a little low on your end.
We can hear you. Just talk louder.
Okay. And I don't know how this feed is, so I might
it looks
freeze
great.
once in a while. Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll work here.
All right.
Your feed looks good. Your sound is a little better. You're a little closer now, so you're in good shape.
Good.
Yep. All right, Mike.
Perfect.
Thanks for hanging in there and anchoring our show today. I don't know if you got to listen to any of it, but we talked a lot about the OC. You're out there once again. Tell us where you're at and tell us how people can get a hold of you, get some coaching help.
Well, I just started my lessons today, and I'm at the Orleans. I'll be here through June 26th. Best way to reach me, you can either email me at my email address, bowlbetter@hotmail.com, or you can message me through Facebook, either my personal page, Mike Jasnow, or my coaching page, Coach Mike Jasnow. That's probably the best way. Let me know what date you might want, and I can let you know what's available.
All right. Well, I can give a personal recommendation. One year I shot 1470, and you got me all the way up to 1580 the next year. So, what is the? Let's take a basic bowler. You got a guy coming in. He really hasn't bowled before. He doesn't understand how tough the championships are. Let's start with that before we get into some of the pros and some of the people you work with. What are you going to tell a newcomer who says, "Hey, I'd like to have a lesson"? What's the first thing you're going to work on for them?
Well, I'll talk to them a little bit. If they're an overthinker, I would suggest having the lesson after they bowl. If they're not too much of an overthinker, I would definitely do it before they bowl the OC. It will be a quick tune-up for their game. I will give them one little, let's say I might see 3 issues in their game. We may work on all 3, but then I will suggest you pick that much of what we worked on. One little piece of one of the things we worked on, and incorporate that for the OC. The rest is for when you go home. Okay. And most people are pretty good about that. Also, I can give them some heads up on what the lanes are doing. I've been over there a little bit to watch. I was lucky enough to watch that performance yesterday. I didn't see the whole doubles and singles, but I watched pretty much their whole team event, as well as the start of their doubles and singles. So, some information on the lanes. I don't know what's been said so far about the lane conditions. The scores don't lie, and the scores tell us the lanes are a little bit easier. I hate to even use the term easier because it's still nationals. I think they look a little less touchy, I would say. So a little bit more forgiving, but not even close to what the forgiveness is on like a house shot. So less would be a better description.
Yeah.
All right. When you work with your 225 bowlers and your professionals, what's the philosophy there? More mental, more physical, or just depends on the bowler?
Well, I do cover some mental stuff for everyone I work with, just some basic stuff. The pros are a little bit different, even like the high-level amateurs, maybe a little bit different than some of the pros I work with. It's more for the really high-level bowlers. I want to know, like, what is their bad shot? What happens on the lane? When you make a bad shot, where do you feel off? I'll pick their brain a little bit more before I dive into working on anything. Obviously, the lower accomplished bowler, things are more obvious. So it's quite a bit easier to get somebody from 130 to 160 than it is to get somebody from 220 to 230, right? So like last week I was here for the Masters all week, and I get messages from friends that, oh, you get to work the pros, that must be hard. And I write them back, my head hurts every day because it's more complicated. Nothing is obvious. So it's way more in depth and it's not obvious. So it's a lot more complicated to work with the higher level bowlers.
Yeah, that's interesting because you would think, right away, the pros, they throw it so great. What do they need to work on? Well, they're probably much more pickier on what's going on. You got a chance to work with one of the guys from around town here who was in the Masters here recently. Take a little bit and talk about him.
Yeah, Brad Miller. I've been the first time I worked with Brad was actually almost 5 years ago now, and we've worked a few times a year since then. I had a great run of the Masters, third place in the majors, a great result. It wasn't quite what he wanted. Obviously third is great until you finish third. Then you want that second or first. Okay, but he made a great run. That's a tough tournament, and if you guys watched any of it, you saw how brutal the lanes were all week. Just really, really challenging conditions, tough format. Just that match play, pair to pair, is very hard. So to get through those matches and to make that show, I think that's one of the tougher shows to make on tour. So he did great. I like working with Brad. Fan of their channel. So if you're not already watching Brad and Kyle on YouTube, definitely watch their content. Really good stuff there. I got a lot of messages like, hey, it was good to see you, Brad and Kyle. And I explained back, like, that's not always a choice. Sometimes it's just there's a camera in your face. Channel. Well, it's all good. Like working with those two.
I won't even ask you what you worked on with Brad because we know he's got a good mental game. He's got a great physical game. We know that you probably spend hours trying to show him how to make the 4-pin on TV, correct?
We spent actually 0 time working on picking up 4-pins because the 4-pin had nothing to do with shooting the 4-pin. It was above the shoulders. So we do spend a lot of time on mental stuff with Brad. Some physical game things he can kind of get sloppy with a couple things. So we kind of hammer that down, get it cleaned up a little bit. But a lot of the mental stuff, everybody on tour throws it really good. Everybody's extremely talented. So a lot of it is above the shoulders of the people that rise to the top consistently.
Yeah. Well, you've done over 10,000 videos, and my takeaway, besides the personalized work that you did, you ended up with a thumb drive. You worked with a couple of things that I kind of knew that you just don't see because you're not watching yourself bowl. But over those videos, what's probably the most common mistake bowlers make, or maybe just kind of generalize that? What are some of the common mistakes that they make?
I would say one of the more common things is just something in the start. And if the start's off, it chain reacts and causes other things to be off. I think a lot of bowlers will try to correct the result they don't like without spending time to correct what's causing the result they don't like. I can tweak something at the beginning of their approach, and then all of a sudden they have more balance without even working on balance. They have more accuracy without working on that. So that's the trick, is finding what's causing what, and if you correct the right thing, the other things will chain react in the way you want without even working on them. The other issue in bowling, there's lots and lots of bad free advice. And what I mean by that, let's say somebody has kind of a sloppy game, not the best bowler, and they go and they shoot 700. They're told how great they are, even though they have several flaws in their game. They're great that night. That same bowler goes out and bowls the same way physically and shoots 160, 170. People come out of the woodwork and tell them what they're doing wrong and what they should do. They're bowling the same exact way that when they shot 700. So too many bowlers, other bowlers judge their motion off their score, not their motion. And same thing. Let's say you have super quick feet and you shoot 700. Nobody tells you to slow your feet down when you're striking. When you don't strike, slow your feet down. Okay? So you want somebody who's going to be honest and somebody who's going to judge your motion off of your motion, not just your scores. And I think that's pretty important.
You talked about slow feet. I remember you telling me that's kind of one of the misnomers in bowling is people think, oh, you got to keep your feet slow all the time. You're like, no, you're getting progressively faster as you go and using that momentum and using gravity rather than muscling the ball like myself. That's kind of one of the misnomers is, boy, I really got to slow down. My feet were too fast. Sometimes that's the case, but most of the time it's not.
Correct. And you think of sports. Let's say in bowling, what's the most common thing people are told when they don't bowl well? Slow down, stay slow. Think of other sports you've played, basketball, whatever it is. How often when you're having a bad day are you told to go slowly and more carefully? Never, because they're sports. So is bowling. We want athleticism. We want loose and fluid, not slow and controlled and muscled.
Yeah, and I remember the other one of the other cool aspects of what you do. Obviously, you've got all kinds of video stuff there, and you're able to pick out professionals that are similar to the bowler that you've got in front of you, and use those and use the split screen and show people, hey, this is where in the second step you're already lagging. Your arm swing should be here, whatever. And to me, that was one of the easiest things to look at as a bowler, and maybe make some improvements on.
Yeah, I agree. We're all pretty visual, so I think having a visual helps. I feel bad because it's a brutal comparison to compare amateurs to the top pros that bowl for a living. It's really not even fair, but it's good to see what makes them so good, And usually, when I see a motion with an amateur or a lesser accomplished bowler that I never see with the top pros, there's a reason. If that worked, somebody on tour would do that because they're bowling for their money. And if that worked and made them money, somebody would do it. So that's another thing. If you're doing something that no top level bowler does, you may be bowling a harder way or a less effective way.
Oh, that's a great point. We're talking to Mike Jasnow, USBC certified coach. You're doing all kinds of coaching right now, Mike. But take a moment and take us back to your bowling career. You were here close to town at Wichita State, and then you went on the PBA tour. Take a moment and talk about your career.
Wow. I have to go in the memory bank there. That is quite a while ago. It actually almost seems like another lifetime ago to me. College bowling was probably the best thing I've ever done in my bowling career, believe it or not. I think college bowling is awesome. Nowadays, it's all on sport shots. It's high-level coaching now. Not that it wasn't when I went to Wichita State. But I think it prepares bowlers for what's next better than it used to even. Okay? And there's just such a high level of competition in college. It really makes you push yourself these days. Then went out on tour, had moderate success, I would say. I never got to that top-notch level. I wouldn't even say I got to the notch below the top-notch. Made some shows and was fortunate enough to get a win, but I didn't have what those top guys had. And I was getting better, but then unfortunately in 1993 was in a bad car accident. Was actually hit by a drunk driver, so don't drink and drive, by the way. And had a severe neck injury, and that's what ended my career, and didn't bowl another tournament after that accident, actually.
All right.
Wow. Yeah, that's and talk a little bit about the difference between coaching and doing, because there's a lot of great coaches out there that are not necessarily great at doing, and there's a lot of people out there like a Pete Weber that just can shut everything off and just go throw the ball. But if you ask him to coach you, it's like, well, I know how to throw the ball. I'm really good at doing that, but going the opposite direction, maybe not so much.
I think it's a lot about communication, knowing how to talk to the person you're dealing with. Personality-wise, you have to catch on quickly to the type of person you're dealing with to know how to talk to them, to make some kind of connection. I remember I got a couple compliments after a lesson that meant a lot to me. One lady was a teacher, high school teacher for 35 years. And she asked me if I ever taught. And I said, no, I haven't. She goes, well, you should, because you're an excellent teacher. And I said, well, coaching is kind of like teaching, just different a little bit, But that was one of the highest compliments I've ever got from someone who's been a professional educator for 35 years, for them to tell me that I'm doing really well, that meant a lot. So I think it's a lot of that communicating with the student is just knowing how to say the right thing at the right time, the right way, different wording to say the same thing, something like that. But you're right. There are a lot of great coaches that don't necessarily bowl anymore, or maybe were never at the highest level of bowling, but they're great coaches. And you're exactly right on the other side too. There's a lot of great bowlers that do not communicate well and are rough around the edges of coaching wise and just not as good a coach as they are a bowler. Okay. Luckily, I consider myself a way better coach than I was a bowler.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting that you say that too. Is that I used to work in a pro shop for a long time, and doing some coaching comes along with that. And that was the biggest thing for me, is that I feel like I can see things pretty well, but the communication thing, my coaching improved as I improved in my communication, because some people are very mathematic, some people are very feel oriented, some people are very target oriented, and so as soon as you could explain something the way that really made sense to them,
right?
If you saw what was going on but you couldn't explain it to them, it didn't really help them. But as soon as you flip that switch and you explain it to them in a way that they could understand, then all of a sudden that's what really opened it up. So that's a very good point. Now, we did have.
I think it's good to see different coaches even. And you stick with the coach that kind of speaks your language, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of high level coaches, and some are just not the right match for a certain bowler. Doesn't mean they're not good coaches. It's just that they're not quite the right matchup. So if you're looking for a coach and you're like, I'm not sure, don't be afraid to try different coachings, and then you stick what's right for you, basically.
Yeah. Now, I did have a question in the chat here that I thought was pretty good. When you're coaching people, obviously there's a physical aspect and there's the mental aspect. But how much does fit, like actual ball fit, work into it when somebody actually does the right things? They have a decent mental outlook, but they just have a terrible fit. When does that kind of fit into the equation?
Yeah. Where does the fit in, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty important. And I can usually tell within the first couple of shots if their ball fits them well or not. And I do for the pros, I don't really check their fits, because obviously you can tell if it's good off their hand, it probably fits pretty good. Yeah. But with the amateurs, I can usually, the process of the lesson, they warm up until they're comfortable. Then I have them throw a half a dozen shots. I get some video. And usually the first thing I'll do is look at the fit, just to make sure. Span, some pitch things. Are they using tape? Shape of their thumb, shape of the hole, that kind of stuff. Explain about tape if they don't use tape. So it's a huge factor. And you think of any sport. Let's say you've never gone skiing before and you're size 10 boots, right? And they give you size 14. Well, that's going to make skiing harder. So with any sport, if you're using equipment that doesn't fit well, it puts you at a disadvantage. And even getting the proper fit, it's a process. You don't just all of a sudden like, oh my God, the first try, we nailed it. Sometimes it's 4 or 5 tries to nail the right fit for you.
Yeah. One last thing before I turn it back over here. Brad Miller, again, he's a local guy. We see him a lot at tournaments here, and he's gotten a lot better over the last couple of years, and just from all across the board. Now, it still seems like, even on the Masters show, he threw it great, and then it almost looked like he tightened up a little bit towards the end of the game. Maybe his timing a little bit early. What are some tells maybe that you can see where it's just the difference between a bad shot at the wrong time and visibly seeing somebody get tight? What do you look for as far as that goes?
Yeah, you're right. Now, if those bad shots that he made were at the beginning of the game, that's different than at the end of the game, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, like that first game he bowled, the washout, I didn't even think twice about the washout shot, because it was almost, they were hard. Most of the week those guys played in. There was a kind of a look to the right, but that was not easy to the right. You saw there was a massive bounce. And if you saw the show, the IQ tour he was throwing was so shiny you could see your face in it. So you're using a polished ball when there's no out of bounds.
Mm-hmm.
So the washout, I didn't even think twice about that because it was almost unusual to not see somebody miss a hip and right if they were playing that line on a bad shot. The spare shot was not his best spare shot at the washout. That's the shot that kind of got to me like, but then he kind of recovered after that. And the shot in the 10th on that left lane in the first game, a little bit tentative, went a little bit high, left that high 410. One of those could have fallen, but, he'd never made a major show before. That was his third single step ladder show. And being comfortable on a show and really performing at the highest level, that's not an easy thing to do. So as a coach, the way he started that first game, the first 8 shots, he had the strike, 7-10, 6-bagger. I didn't even care what happened after that because I saw that as a huge win for him. Just for him to make that shot look like it's not so bad when it was awful was really, really good. Okay.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times you learn from mistakes. So hopefully the kind of mistakes he made was maybe a little bit more tentative, trying to kind of play defense instead of continuing to go for it. He'll learn from that. Then the next time he gets better with that. Okay. But yeah, those first 8 shots were great. So I really thought that was a great show, no matter what else happened. Now, we're not going to have conversations about the ending of those games.
Yeah. But something else that's kind of interesting is that when we have the lights on the TV shows, a lot of the guys say that, especially with practice in between games, people don't know how many practice shots they get before the show even starts. And then in between games, who gets to practice when, and then the TV lights make the lanes transition even faster. And then something else that really gets me is that people only see adjustments when guys are moving their feet left or right. But I saw a bunch of different adjustments that Brad made that weren't moving his feet left or right. So I don't know if there's really a question in there or not. But again, the 410 and the 10th frame, like you said, it might have been a little tentative, but it might have been a little bit of transition. It might have been a little of whatever else. But I thought for the most part, he bowled pretty good on that show.
Yeah, I thought he had a pretty good show. Obviously, everything could be better, right? But that was a tough environment. The lights, they're bright. I remember the first show I made. We got to practice before the lights were on, and then they turned the lights on, and literally, I thought, I can't see anything. How am I going to bowl? And instantly, it was 10 degrees hotter. Also, So all those other things that you don't see when you watch the show that are going on, can be distractions until you learn how to just kind of phase it out. The good shows, when you have a really good show, after the first couple of frames, it's not even like you're on the show anymore. You're just bowling. But it takes a while to get to that point, for sure.
All right, some great insight and some great questions there. I'm not sure I can top those, but I got a couple of more for you, Mike, before you go. And this is one of Luke's favorite every time that I bring this up. But take a moment and talk about one of your most favorite persons in the bowling world to work with and one of your least favorite.
Wow. Jeez. That's a hard one.
Your choice to answer.
Well, some of my favorite physical games, and just one of my best friends is Rick Steelsmith. I've always been a fan of his game. We roomed on tour for a while. Just one of my good friends, and I'm so glad he's the coach at Wichita State. I think that is the perfect fit for that program. And they're going to have, they proved already they're going to be successful. They won last year. Hopefully they'll keep those winning ways going. But his physical game, I still use his game. Now, he doesn't bowl much competitively anymore, and that's a compliment to him because he doesn't bowl at all. Right? But I still use him for an example for some certain people. And if they don't know who he is, I said, you better go YouTube and watch him a lot because physical game-wise, one of the best ever. I would say favorite game on the women's side, physical game that I've worked with, Tammy Turner. Again, if you're young, you might not know who that is. But if you don't know who Tammy Turner is, you should YouTube her, and you're going to love how she throws the ball. Just energetic, fluid, power, but not muscled. Those two are two of my favorites, and two good friends also. I can't say I've worked with a lot of people that are like that were bad lessons. I have good ammunition. I have video. People can't argue with me. So if I say you're doing this, they can't say no, I'm not. I can show them. And most people that work with me, they come in for advice, and they're open and they're receptive to advice. So very rarely do people argue with me or disagree and that, because they're there for help, and I'm trying to help them. I can tell you there were two lessons that I was kind of nervous to do. And I've done probably now over 15,000 lessons, so that's a lot. And two stand out. One, again, kind of old school woman. When I had the Lane 81 in Reno, Donna Adamek. If you're older, you remember her, and she was like the female Mark Roth and just superstar status. And she came in for a lesson, and that was one of the lessons I was like totally nervous to do, just because it was Donna Adamek. The other one was Walter Ray Williams. He would always come up and just say hi because we both on tour together. And he came up one time in Reno and said, "Hey, you have time later today?" I go, "Yeah, for who?" And he said, "For me." I was like, "For you?"
Yeah.
And obviously, Walter has not the most conventional game, so a little bit more tricky and interesting. He was actually the defending champion in the Masters. The defending champion gets the pace in qualifying, but if they don't qualify, they're in it anyway, right? He would have missed the cut by like 100. He wasn't throwing it good. So then he came up and worked with me, and then went out, and he had to bowl the tournament leader and actually beat him that first round. But sometimes games like that, it's a little bit more intimidating until you start to see what's what and what's important and what's not important.
Yeah, it was kind of funny you say that, because I got a chance when the PWBA tour came back. I got a chance to drill a ball for Carolyn Doran Ballard. And
right.
I can't even, it's still nervous enough, I can't even say her name right. But there was some issues with the truck. And so the rep came in and said, hey, can you drill the ball for Carolyn? And I'm like, oh, yeah, sure. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, crap. Carolyn. Because I'm trying to think of all the other female bowlers that I can think of that maybe named Carolyn that are not Carolyn Doran Ballard.
Right.
it all ended up going fine. But yeah,
well, she's a super nice person. Now, if you missed on the spin, she would have ripped your heart out, probably.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. She doesn't have any time for anybody that's not on her level of just drive and determination and whatever else. And so I was up to the task, thankfully enough. But I did take a few extra minutes on that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that superstar status can intimidate you, can it?
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick, you brought up Rick Steelsmith. It's a good example because obviously he has a great physical game, but a lot of people who may not have known Rick back when we did originally don't realize the way he used to throw the ball before he had some really bad shoulder issues.
Right.
Were you ever involved with any work with Rick back then when he first made had to make the changes he had to make?
Well, yeah, because, before he got hurt, when I was bowling on tour, I was more bowling, not coaching as much. So we bowled together, but it wasn't really like a coach and bowler. We were both bowlers at the time. I have worked with him several times, a little bit before the injury and many times after the injury as well. And I use him for an example of with young guys that maybe have a steep swing and stay closed, and that's kind of what he did. So his swing got high, but he didn't open up, and that's how he hurt his shoulder. So if I see someone like that, I'll use Rick as the example of we don't want that to happen to you, But yeah, he had to make some changes in his game. In fact, another one, Brad's buddy Kyle Sherman, we made a pretty big swing change with him, where we lowered his swing for similar reasons. Now Kyle's in his upper 20s and was having a hip problem and a shoulder problem and other problems, and he's too young to have that. So one, for preservation, we made that change, but two, he would get trapped in a certain position with his hand and not be able to do what he wanted with his hand because of that swing. And again, Kyle Sherman with his swing the way it used to be, great bowler, right? So it's a little bit scary when you take a great bowler and you make a little bit of a big change. Most of the time it's just little tweaks, because even though I was relatively sure like this is going to work out great, there's a little hint of he's great the way he is. What if we do this and it's not great? Luckily it all worked out, and I think he's throwing it better than ever. He got his first singles win this year. So I think they're both he and Brad are on the road to bigger and better things. But yeah, Kyle was kind of like Steel Smith, where we didn't want him to get hurt. So,
all right, well, good stuff. Once again, Mike, take a moment for the people who may not have been here at the first part of the interview, and tell people the dates you're going to be out there and the information they need to get a hold of you.
Okay. If you're in Vegas or coming out to Vegas to bowl something, I will be set up at New Orleans from today, April 10th, through June 26th. Now, I know that's not the end of the Nationals, but what happens at New Orleans on June 27th, the TATS comes in. And then they have the lanes for 8 days, so I can't get lanes for lessons, so I'm just ending then. You can get a hold of me through my email, which is up on the screen. Thank you guys for having that up on the screen. bowlbetter@hotmail.com. Shoot me a message. Let me know what dates you're interested in. I can let you know what times are available. I do have several dates that are unavailable because of other events at New Orleans, and also been booking a lot of lessons. I think I have about 160 lessons booked already for this event. So there are some days that are getting pretty full. So if you want a session, definitely book ahead of time. The other way to book a session with me is through Facebook, my personal page, Mike Jasnow on Facebook, or my coaching page, Coach Mike Jasnow on Facebook. So you can find me there, send me a private message, and we can get you set up.
All right, would this be a good venue for me to go ahead and book my time right now?
Well, I don't have my schedule right in front of me, so you can send me a message, and we'll get.
I will go through the conventional methods like all the other peons that have to do it that way. I'll be out there June 16th and 17th, Mike, and I had fun. I know for me, Lane 81 in Reno was really cool to go up there, and I know you enjoyed that.
That was awesome.
Orleans and you're doing your stuff there. So, Mike, once again, thanks for.
Because I do know my June 17th is already fully booked.
Okay, well that's the second. That's our singles and doubles day. So
okay,
we're looking more in the 13th to 14th range.
Okay,
and if you're full in, and you're going to make an extra time for me, that's just the way it is.
Okay.
All right, Mike. Thanks for spending a bunch of time with us. I thought actually the stuff you and Luke talked about there. Were some really good insight on what you do out there and getting inside the heads of bowlers. So once again, thanks for coming on the show this time, and thanks for the times you were accessible before with us on the previous bowler show too.
I appreciate it. I always enjoy talking with you guys. I'll be on anytime you want me.
All right, awesome. All right, Mike, have a good night.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Okay. Mike Jasnow, one of the good guys in the bowling world, giving back to the bowling world and the coaching side. And Luke, I'm not going to lie. I thought some of the stuff you guys talked about was great. You had some great questions for him, especially when you brought up, guys who really weren't bowlers or may have been casual bowlers or good, okay bowlers, but never really well known, but became great coaches. And a lot of times that's the case. I mean, there's not many other sports. I mean, nobody's coming to let's say you and I can make a free throw. Nobody's coming to us for basketball advice. So.
Yeah,
that was good stuff.
That's one of those things that people talk about all the time is when some people try to coach them, is like, well, what have you ever done? And it's like, well, there's a lot of people that are better coaches. There's a lot of people that are better at just shutting their brain off and doing things. And I think I fall into the more coaching where the hamsters never stop. And so I just can't let go of the ball sometimes. I can help other people that can just shut everything off and let go of the ball. But just because they're a great bowler doesn't mean that they're going to be a great coach. Some people are great at figuring out how to do things, and other people are great at actually doing those things. Sometimes you kind of bridge that gap. But again, you can't. It's hard to think of great coaches in history in any sport that were also great players. it just doesn't happen.
It's hard to translate. I mean, you talked about hamsters, running around in your mind. There are a lot of people describe that as squirrels juggling knives in your head. So stuff. Everybody's got stuff in there. But we talked about it before the show. We were talking about golf as we were watching the Masters, and I can't play near as good golf as I used to, or even really good golf at this point in my life. I mean, I play okay, but not like I used to. But I could still teach the game because I learned the physical parts at that time. I just can't do them.
Yeah.
So it's funny. Bowlers is the same way, how they absorb some of the knowledge they get. And I've done the lesson twice with Mike, and both times, I'll be honest, I used all the stuff he said. And then, just like a normal bowler, I get back home and I'm on league, and I'm like, I'm just going to muscle the ball the way I want. I'm not pushing it away. And
at least you know what you're screwing up now, right?
Yeah, I could go to that thumb drive and watch it and go, yeah, that stuff's right. I just, you get into bad habits, especially in league, and it's hard to get out of them. But all right, Luke, anything else you got for the show this week? We got through the Brian Voss interview, some of the technology problems that we had. We got a chance to check with Matt Cannizzaro, who once again had a busy week out at the OC. I don't know how he's doing it, but he's popping in live streams here and there and reporting on all the news out there. And then, of course, we got to talk to Mike Jasnow. So what did you think of the show? Is that a little different format? We have a few less guests, but we also got to talk to Brian and Mike a little longer.
Yeah, I think, again, it's one of those things that it could go one way or the other. You could have somebody that can talk forever and be very interesting, and other people who just want to hit the high points and kind of move on. So it is a little tough sometimes to figure out who the guests are going to be that you can talk with for a while. The guys that really like getting into stuff, and then there's some others that maybe like Walter Ray. He's always been kind of quieter and more soft spoken, and hit the high points with him and move on. And then you have some other people like Brian Voss that can tell stories forever and they just have opinions and want to talk about stuff. And then, or somebody like Mike Jasnow, who's even a different kind of, you can talk about different things all the time because he's been in so many different places doing so many different things and coaching so many different people. And so, some people naturally have a few more things to talk about. And other people are just kind of like, I just kind of go out and do my thing. And I just like to stay in this lane, and that's where I like to be. So. All
right. Who was your favorite guest of the show and your least favorite guest today?
Well, there was only a couple of them.
Overall, no, we I always like asking that. And obviously, it's just kind of a funny little light moment on the show because nobody really wants to call out somebody, and I don't expect them to answer that. I'm not, it's not like I'm a journalist doing a deep dive here trying to. I'm really going to zets this guy and set him up with a question. It's just kind of fun. So.
No, my least favorite guest was me asking Matt McNeil questions. I went kind of stupid with that. I need to redeem myself, and also hopefully we get Verity Crawley on one of these days because I need to redeem myself with her too. So,
well, I give you credit because I thought you did have some great questions with Mike. But my favorite moment was when you finished a question that you said, "I don't even know if that's really a question."
Yeah. It's more of a statement. Yeah, I just want to put something out there and think, I think I'm onto something here, but he's a smart guy, so I'll let him decide whether or not that's a intelligent statement. This isn't a
journalism 101 class. You and I did not. As far as I know, you didn't do a journalism class, but
no.
I think we asked some good questions, and we're going to have some fun on here, and that's just the way it's going to be. We're not going to be perfect, and as you saw, some of the fun we had with the phone lines and with whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff just happens.
We get it worked out one way or the other. So
somehow we get them on. You got more ways to skin a cat through the phone, and I, to be honest, getting Brian's picture on there, and not necessarily the one with me, but getting his picture on there and you and I on the sides, I thought that was pretty cool. That was a good save by you. So, all right, well, let's wrap it up on the positive note. Once again, our show is brought to you by Storm Bowling, our title sponsor. We're also brought to you by BobbyJacksons.com. Double J's Pro Shop, SRGBBFS, Storm Roto Grip bowling balls for sale. As you know, we're also brought to you by Coolwick, I Am Bowling Turbo Grips, and Bowler's Mart. I get Bowler's Mart in there that time.
S&H Custom Homes.
S&H Custom Homes. I did not mean to leave that out. Check them out. They're in the Northland in the Silverbrook and Thousand Oaks subdivisions, building homes. If you want to check them out on their Facebook page, or give them a call at 816-215-8750 and ask for Christie. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. Luke, once again, a little different stuff going on in the show, but each and every week we're going to try and improve, and we'll see what's going on. Programming note, of course, next week with Easter, we will not be having a show, so we're going to take off a week. I know I'll be running a tournament, and you guys are going to be bowling.
Yeah.
So we'll take a week off. We'll refresh, and when we come back on the other side, some of you saw in the chat there, Angel was talking about we're going to work on a lot of PWBA bowlers. We're going to get them on there, get their tour starting up here in 3 or 4 weeks. So we're going to concentrate on that, and we're going to see how you do with Verity and some of the gals when you talk about bowling, because that's one of the things you do talk a lot about is you really enjoy the women's side.
Yeah, I really do.
That'll be fun. So, all right, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Bowler Show. I'm your host, Dave Waswo, with Luke Rosedahl. We will see you guys next week.
April 24th.
Next week is in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Next show. April 24th. See you.